Doki Doki Literature Club is the kind of false expectations I've wanted in the video game industry for years, and it's one that can only exist in the modern era of video games. It is the only game of its kind, and it's why despite coming out in a year of some of the 8th generation's best games, Doki Doki Literature Club is the most unique game of last year. Delivering on false expectations is a unique problem for the video game platform. Whereas films and books can generally get away with a level of misleading marketing and setting up the audience for one experience, only to deliver something different and play on the level of surprise. Take for example Darren Aronofsky's Mother. Marketed as a more atypical horror thriller to catch viewers off guard for its metaphorical religious allegory, this bait and switch that the film delivers from my false expectations was one of my favourite aspects of the film. Where I went in expecting a somewhat typical horror thriller to kill 2 hours, I left with my mind somewhat blown and a lot to think about. Experiences that catch me off guard like this, that set me up for one experience and deliver another, are without a doubt some of the most memorable. This is a luxury the gaming industry generally can't afford. With higher prices of entry and a more rigid expectation when it comes to gameplay and playstyle, the example of false expectations and the use of marketing to deliver an unexpected experience are few and far between. Unless you count E3 demo downgrades, in which case Ubisoft are false expectation experts. And while that's not to say films can go crazy with it either, studios can't just advertise the next Saw movie as a kid's Disney movie and then say "got him" when thousands of children are scarred for life. But they can generally get away with subverting your expectations and deliver an experience you either weren't expecting or led to believe was something different. This risk or use of marketing mistakes to tilt or trick your expectations of what a product is or what it plans to deliver are seen far less in the game industry, and as such we rarely see examples of it quite as prevalent as Doki Doki Literature Club. Everything about Doki Doki Literature Club, from its colour palette, genre, aesthetics, marketing, music and characters, are all built from the ground up to deliver a false expectation. It's a game where the bait and switch isn't just a part of a near twist ending or fun genre shifting level, but the entirety of the game. The only thing that ever betrays Doki Doki Literature Club's dedication to its fake persona is the big old psychological horror tag on Steam, and the disclaimer at the beginning, both things that again very subtly subverts later on. All the elements of Doki Doki Literature Club are created to deliver this meta-narrative. You simply couldn't market this on any other platform. A publisher couldn't release this game, as the very genre it's marketed at isn't technically true. And it's why Doki Doki Literature Club just couldn't exist anywhere but in the current landscape of PC indie games. This allows Doki Doki Literature Club to deliver the kind of subversive experience I imagine many have unknowingly been clamouring for, and it's why the game has resonated with so many people online. This freeing of both expectations and a necessity to deliver a particular experience sets Doki Doki Literature Club up to build a narrative entirely focused on being the exact opposite of what it is. Though for the most part as people we generally like a level of control and expectancy, we love to be surprised. Think back on one of your favourite films or favourite experiences, and I guarantee it'll be one you either didn't expect or that surprised you. It's why horror films are so popular, because we like the idea of not being in control, and yet it's an experience we rarely find. Though a good horror film may shock you, you were expecting it when you went into the cinema, or bought the DVD, and the spooky picture of the Exorcist girl was plastered all over the front. It's why we're so enamoured with the idea of random adventures, or ghosts. It's the idea that something unexpected, or out of our control will happen. And it's why Doki Doki Literature Club is so special. There's a reason why the first comment whenever anyone asks about it is simply, "Stop asking, just play it blind." Because the unexpected, the lack of control, being brought in by false expectations is the entire point of the game. It is a 5-hour long experience in which 3 hours of content is there entirely to set up this one immersion, and it's brilliant. It is truly unique in its dedication to deliver this immersion. It isn't that Doki Doki Literature Club is particularly terrifying, its creepy visuals and delve into meta hell isn't something an internet creepypasta couldn't achieve. However, it's the idea that as a player you have absolutely no control, that for the first time you feel as though the video game you are playing might actually be playing one step ahead of you. That simply isn't possible, but for those incredible 2 hours, in which the once typical visual novel dating sim, in which you try to romance 3 girls during an after-school book club, starts to slowly fall apart around you. You feel like you have absolutely no idea how the game will play out, and it's why you love it even more as you push forward. Of course, many including myself had caught on or were somewhat aware that the game wasn't quite what it was pretending to be. Be it for the many YouTube Let's Players, not so subtle thumbnails, or again the Steam tags and reviews that strongly imply you aren't playing a typical visual novel. It doesn't take much observation to assume this and go in with caution thinking,
when do you think it'll degenerate? I would think it'll degenerate
Luckily, the game very cleverly and subtly manages to trick your expectations again, with this in a few interesting ways. The first is how long it plays it straight. Anyone who has played the game knows the entirety of your first playthrough plays like a typical visual novel. This is nearly half the game's runtime, and I clocked in 5 hours by the end. That means that for nearly 3 hours, you're playing a completely straight visual novel dating sim, without a hint of horror or disturbing imagery in sight. This gives you plenty of time to be sucked in, and just forget about the disturbing imagery warning displayed at the beginning. And if you happen to, again like me, be a bit more stubborn, and try your darndest not to forget the warning, the game has one more trick up its sleeve. Though the game says disturbing imagery, it doesn't say the nature of said imagery. So by the time you picked your best girl and started hanging posters of her up on your walls, the game hits you with the real shit when in a surprisingly powerful moment, Sayori admits to the player that she suffers from depression. The game doesn't do it in an exploitative or hand-wavy fashion either. It presents her depression as a serious twist in the narrative, causing you to take down your best girl posters and go, forget about the dating sim, this is more important. Or you can be a heartless a-hole like me and carry on going for Yuri. But what's so effective about this is how it makes you go, oh, that's what the distressing content is. This game deals with mental illness, and to a degree it does, as each girl's backstory deals with some form of mental instability or abuse. This is so deviously brilliant on Dan Salvatore's part, leading me to the conclusion that this was a visual novel about mental health. Despite me being a veritable weeb when it comes to video games, I rarely play visual novels, minus my love for 999. And I've played even less dating sims, but I do remember being made aware of one years back, called Katawa Shujo, that translates to, oh boy, here we go, disabled girl. What sounds like an exploitative gimmick tacked onto a visual novel to make it stand out, actually ended up being a beloved and acclaimed look at a serious subject matter that paid respect to the disabilities of its characters. I'm saying all this to reenact my thought process after learning of the main character's mental illness issues. Impressed by the fact that the game was going to be a serious look into mental illness, and bam.
They degenerate. I knew it would.
By deviating into the uncomfortable waters of mental health just enough at the end, the game managed to falsify my expectations, so that even though the 3 hours of visual novelling didn't manage to sway me into thinking it was all safe, this final twist of the knife did. It's a brilliant and dark misleading of my expectations, and Team Salvatore should be commended for the dedication to delivering it. The 2 hours after that moment is the game's known descent into madness, and because the game so brilliantly managed to trick you the first time, it works, because you don't feel in control. And the narrative comes to accompany this feeling of powerlessness, by having the meta-narrative being about the game falling in love with the player. As the remaining 2 love interests start to bug out, and you throw your best girl poster in the bin, and burn the bin in horror, the game doubles down by revealing that Monica was behind it all. After being denied an opportunity to end up with the player in the game system, she changed it so that you could end up together. She speaks to the player directly, and you have to eventually go into the game's files yourself to defeat her. Finally, after 2 hours of terrifying meta-narrative, in which you feel powerless against a game that up to this point has pulled you out of your comfort zone, you take the power back and reassert control. Doki Doki Literature Club is truly special. In its single-focused goal of delivering an experience players weren't expecting, it uses every trick up its sleeve to deliver a bait and switch I've wanted for years. Video games' use of player control makes them perfect for experiences in which your degrees of input and power are warped and taken away. It's sort of like the gaming equivalent of going on a day trip with friends and you get lost or end up in some abandoned house and your adrenaline is kicking in. You weren't expecting to end up in this terrifying scenario, and that itself is part of the rush. Whereas had you gone to the abandoned building as the original plan, you wouldn't. I think this is why Doki Doki Literature Club has resonated with so many people and gained such a cult following. It's because we want those unexpected experiences. We want to feel a lack of control and have our expectations changed. It was the most unique experience in a year of some of my favourite games, and that's why I love Doki Doki Literature Club. Thanks for watching. This video took a lot longer to edit than the previous ones, and I tried to do a couple of new things to make the video more lively, so hopefully it paid off. I know I'm a little late to the scene with this one, but luckily because I'm just starting out here on YouTube, I can pretty much cover whatever, and I still had some thoughts I wanted to get out there on Literature Club. For the most part, I'll probably be covering less recent games, generally because I'm slow to everything, but because there are a lot of games in the backlog that I still want to talk about. I plan on starting 2 new series of videos, one about games I think you should go back and play, and one on the ones you shouldn't. I love to go in depth and really analyse games, and I'm really looking forward to start writing these videos. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week, where I'll be discussing why a certain game should be remembered.